Dating for looks in the tricky terrain of pretty privilege. Let's get into it, cousins. Oh God, this is a spicy topic that I've been putting off for a long time. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna observe this topic from a couple different angles. I want to talk about my experience with observing the tricky topography of dating for looks. I want to speak about some of my observations as somebody who also had a later in life sort of glow up in that I did not adhere to what some would define as conventionally attractive for most of my life. And between working out and puberty hitting late, I came into my body and that changed how I experienced dating. And that is an annoying observation, but it's true. And I hate when influencers are full of it and don't own the privileges they carry into dating and how that shapes their experience. So I want to give some context on that so we can walk away with a grand verdict from this jury as to whether or not dating for looks and navigating the tricky terrain of pretty privilege is really worth it. Is it worth it? Da 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 da, and reverse it. Yum 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 yum. If you got a big let me search it. So you all will not believe what I saw on the dating apps the other day. And you know what's funny is I know about this stuff. I see this stuff from the experience of the homosexual community as the guy who dates guys mostly. And I think that it's important to start out with the context on dating for looks from the perspective of someone who dates guys, because the gay community has to be the most judgmental and harsh to date in with regard to looks. It's pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal. It feels like auditioning for a modeling casting. It is ripe and rich with racism because not nearly enough people talk about it, and the majority of the gay influencers out there are white men, conventionally attractive white men who don't have the perspective or the empathy to speak about this because they do not observe it. With regard to pretty privilege and appearance within the gay community, I can speak for ages about it and how it connects to also straight people and other gay people. And there are more parallels between the two than a lot of folks would realize. I'd compare the gay experience of dating based on looks to that of women dating, because a lot of women feel heavily scrutinized for their appearance, right? I can't tell you how many women friends I have who are obsessed with keeping their skin nice and tight, keeping it youthful, because men seem to be eternally attracted to 19-year-olds. That's not creepy at all. You know what I mean? And in the gay community, there's a similar obsession with youth and beauty and taunt skin and Adonis-shaped physiques. Or if you don't have that, then fitting into another category and being a little slim boyish man figure or being stocky and hairy. It's very peculiar how people define these camps of attraction. Let me read you this message I saw on these internets, online dating streets the other day. Grindr. Okay, it said, this guy said, be at least 6'1", 29 to 30 years old, no piercings or tattoos, must have a pretty face, straight and clean teeth, no bald, no top, no verse, no single, no couples, big, not too hairy, muscled with a visible six-pack. Oh my God. That is wild. That's wild. And here's the thing. You're entitled to your preferences, but what's funny about that is how many people obsess over the wrong things when dating. How many people are so obsessed with the optics? How many people are obsessed with what this person looks like and what this person does? And I don't see these people giving an ounce of consideration to how this person treats you. I don't see these same people giving damn near a fraction of a consideration to, is this person kind? Is this person reliable? Underrated take. One of my favorite questions to ask before I consider dating anybody, we're talking even first or second date, is Is this person kind? Is this person thoughtful? Do they seem somewhat reliable, which can only really be proven in time? And then a longer term question, and this is beyond initial attraction, is would I want to walk alongside this person through the hardships in life? Because it's not if life is going to be hard, it's when. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Snaps for that. Uh-huh. Yep. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ooh. You know what I mean? Oh, it's just the obsession with appearance. And I'm not above it. Let me tell you, with regard to dating for looks, with regard to navigating the tricky terrain of pretty privilege, I have thoughts. I have experiences. Okay? I'm not above it. Obviously, I think we all want to date someone who's hot to us. And there are 50 shades of attraction, and everyone's entitled to have their own preference and type. Right? We can stop. Hard pause there. You're allowed to have your own preference and type. However, is it worth questioning your preference and type if that isn't working for you? Or if your preference and type is leading you to have a lot of fun, casual flings, but not leading you to the supportive, loving relationship you want? Hell yeah. Cue my observation about pretty privilege and dating for looks. In my experience, and this is as somebody who is a late bloomer with the appearance, with the body yaddy 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 body yaddy 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 yaddy. Okay, I'm a late bloomer with all that. One thing I've noticed is that most people who have been hot, conventionally attractive for the majority of their life, they don't mean to, but most develop an innate entitlement. An entitlement that you're going to fly me out. An entitlement that you're going to wine and dine me in the best ways. An entitlement that, I don't really need you. My Instagram's going to be flooded with dozens of DMs later today anyway. I can dispose of you at any moment. And as such, a lot of people who have carried a certain level of pretty privilege, adhering to the conventional ideals of what attractive is, whether it's in the gay community or the straight community, those people aren't bad people, but when you learn that you don't really have to develop the parts of your character and your personality to be deemed desirable and attractive, yeah, it creates a sense of entitlement within you. And it can also lead to some major character deficits connected to the entitlement. I'll give you an example. Went on a date not too long ago in these New York City streets, okay? With an individual. We don't name names, okay? We can even change some of the details so we can keep that person out of it. But this person was used to the pretty boy treatment, all right? And I could be an ass too. I could be a jerk. I could act entitled, but I don't. I don't, because I had to develop my personality and my character and learn how to be a good friend and be reliable and stuff before I felt desired because I adhered to certain conventional whatevers as being tall and whatnot. Okay? And we're at this event, and one of the comedians at the event jokingly talks about how some of these pretty girls got flued out by this man. And he's sitting there like, yeah, I've had that happen to me. It's like, yeah, it's whatever. And if I'm being honest, it was a bit of a red flag in my head. Not because you don't deserve good things. I think everyone deserves good things. It's because I've realized based on my past experience with similar people that if that's the norm, that you're used to people doing things for you, not based on your character or your reliability or your kindness, but simply because they think you're hot, then you are likely accustomed to getting away with murder. With red rum. If you've seen The Shining, you get that reference. If you don't, no worries. You are. Because what I've noticed about a lot of conventionally attractive people I've dated who have been hot forever is that they're not used to people telling them the truth. They aren't. They aren't used to people saying, hey, you don't listen very well. Hey, I'm not really feeling heard by you. Hey, I'm showing up for you, but I don't really feel like you're showing up for me. You don't really ask me any questions about myself. I can't tell you how many conventionally attractive guys I've gone on dates with who don't ask me a damn question about myself. It's sickening. It's sickening. It's sad. It's unfortunate. Yeah. 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 It really is. So all this to say is the prospect of dating someone who is truly hot to you, your version of a 10, out of reach, a bad decision. I'm not here to tell you how to think, and I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm just sharing thoughtful observations. I'm just sharing what I've seen. I'm sharing what I've learned from what I've lived. That's all. I'm sharing what I've learned also from the reading. The reading tells us that conventionally attractive people just fare better in all verticals of life. And this is where I want to segue into talking about a couple things related to aesthetics. One is that, yes, being conventionally attractive accrues you a lot more benefits in terms of you get more likely to get promoted. If you're taller, you're more likely to become a CEO. If you're a pretty woman, the highest predictor, I read this somewhere, one of the highest predictors of a woman's class mobility is physical attractiveness. Because a lot of successful men want to date the most, in their eyes, beautiful women. And so if she grew up in poverty, it's a Cinderella story where she gets swept off her knees by the strapping billionaire, right? Yeah, so to say aesthetics don't matter is a lie, right? That said, there's a lot you can do to work on your aesthetics and just be the best looking version of you to you. A lot of ways you can do that. We can get into that in another video. Obviously, naturally, just taking care of yourself, smelling good, looking your best. I'm not pushing like work out to adhere to a certain body type and habitus, but yeah, there are certain people who are only attracted to certain body habitus. And is that problematic, especially in the gay community? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's disgusting that most men feel like they need to look like runway models or be these Herculean beefcakes, many of whom are putting steroids in their bodies. I don't subscribe to that. And they're doing that to adhere to the norm. It's deeply unfortunate because we could be spending that time working on our mental health. We could be spending that time working on our communication skills. We could be spending that time working on 90% of the pie that makes you a good lover. While instead, a lot of men and many women perhaps are working on the 10% of the pie that makes you a physically attractive lover, right? And physical attraction and good relationship skills live in different worlds. They do. You can be really hot. You can have a really impressive job. You can be wildly charismatic and be a horrible lover. Trash. No empathy. No ability to listen, right? No communication skills, no conflict resolution skills. Those things matter more long term. Chemistry comes and goes. Attraction comes and goes. You don't always want to do the hokey pokey dance every day, right? Get freaky. You know what I mean? So there's that. And we don't talk about that enough. How the culture encourages us to prioritize the wrong values. All this to say, yes, aesthetics matter, but also there are things you can do to work on it. And then the final piece, before we get to a fun kicker around our verdict on dating for looks and whatnot, is it worth it? Is racism and privilege, right? There are so many vertices of privilege that show up with regard to dating based on your appearance in relation to other people's appearance. We know that there's studies that talk about how white men, white women get the highest volume of matches on dating apps, followed by other groups. Blacks and Asians get fewer matches on average than other ethnic groups, right? It's a fact. So what does that mean? We know what it means. There are some discrepancies. And I made a post the other day about how if you want to work on racism, Work on the media you consume. I can't name but a few movies I saw growing up that painted beautiful black people as the leading love interest in a mainstream movie. But Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert Pattinson and you name it, Mark Wahlberg and all the white dudes, Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie, there are countless carbon copies of those people who get to portray desirability. I wonder why it's easier for white people to feel desired and romantically sought after. It could be that some people get better marketing than others. When beautiful black and brown people, we have to work a bit harder to affirm our value and worth, particularly when dating in cities where we aren't quite the majority in certain spaces, or when dating in cities where you might have to date outside your race to find what you want for a number of reasons. And I won't go all the way into interracial dating right now and how it overlaps with dating for looks. But I will say that as a black guy who checks certain boxes of tall, dark, muscular, yada, 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 there are some privileges that are connected to that for me. But there's also a lot of disgusting stuff I have to navigate as people try to fetishize me, as people try to exoticize me, as people try to put me in a box and limit me to the narrow idea of their expectation of who I should be based on what they saw in a porno or that they saw in some movie about the cool black dude. I can't tell you how many white men and men of other races who weren't black I've met who were really only interested in me superficially. And when it came to understanding me as a person, or when they realized that I was more than just hot to them, I was also smart, they're like, oh no, that's too much. And they won't tell you that. But a lot of men only like you if you're attracted to them until they realize you're not dumb, that you're not gullible, that you're not stupid. Okay? And once they realize they can't pull a fast one over on you because you have self-esteem, because you'll advocate for what you want, because you have opinions and you're not going to sit back and be a little pick-me, acts like a little trophy, they want nothing to do with you. That's another conversation for patriarchy another day. We don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have time, guys. We don't have time. So here's the kicker, the verdict about dating for looks. Ultimately, do what you want. Ultimately, yeah, there's a lot you can individually do to work on your appearance and whatnot, which is cool. Ultimately, go where you're valued. We like who likes us. That should be a golden rule and a ground rule. You know what I mean? But also, I think it's more important to embrace what's hot to you, who's hot to you, and who has a whole package, who has a high EQ, who has a high respect for you, who has a high interest in building a meaningful connection with you, who's reliable, you know what I mean? Who's compatible where it counts. And obviously someone who you're attracted to. But the more I mature and the more I heal, I realized that when I was trying to date the people who I thought were the most attractive to me, physically attractive to me, most of that was an ego project. Most of that was me seeking a level of validation from other people that I couldn't find within myself. Me trying to pick someone who I was happy to show my friends, look who I'm talking to. You know what I mean? Look at this person. You know, they're pretty hot, right? You know what I mean? It's a whole ego project. And that is a bad reason to date. Bad reason. Bad. So, holistic approach tends to lead to a lot more happiness and fulfillment. You know what I mean? Most, not all, but most conventionally attractive people are quite entitled and don't have to have as high of character because they're used to just getting things they didn't work for. It's a God honest truth. I can speak to, I've seen different sides of that fence. Okay? I'm not just pontificating from thin air. What are your thoughts on this? If you want to dive deeper, you know that we have a Patreon book club. Links down below. You can join and be in community with folks who want to do the work in therapy lady voice. The way to spread this material is to tell your friends. It helps a lot. I appreciate you all, and we'll talk soon, e-cousins. Peace.